Hey everyone, welcome back. Icon here. Thank you so much for checking out another video. Today we have a super intense battle between the Chicago Huntsmen and the New York Subliners. Before we get into that, I do want to break down this map just because I realized that I might have some new subscribers out there, quite a few of you. So thank you guys so much for subbing up and joining part of the nation. But with that, I do want to talk through this. The spawns for the map Gunrunner, just so that everybody's aware of them, so that as we're talking through this intense battle, you guys kind of know what's going on. So as we start here, first hardpoint's right in the middle, and there's a good spawn, which is on the right side, and there's a bad spawn, which is on the left side. So you want to make sure that as it rotates to the second hill, you are flipping spawns so that if you're coming here and approaching the first hill, when it rotates, you now have spawns for the second hill, and the second hill is one where you can really max out a lot of points. So if you get the bad spawn for this first hill, of course you want to send a couple mid over here to contest and try to grab time, but most teams like to also send a couple people over here to the left flank, over towards minecart, towards coal, so that they can eventually flip all the way around here. I know there's a lot going on screen, but you want to try to overtake that second hard point. So as we get into the second hard point, this is the second hard point. There's a good spawn, which is right back behind it, which is why you want that spawn to begin with. There's a bad spawn from middle. So if you're spawning middle, you have just a couple choke points that you can try to get through. So you want to make sure that you're spawning in the back, and that's a hill. The second hill and the fifth hill are super important. So you want to make sure that you're doing all that you can to lock down those hills. Third hill, spawns don't really matter too much, but you do want to try to hold down this side of the map as it's just so that when it gets to the fifth hill. Now, if we're talking about the third hill in specific, it doesn't matter just in terms of the time for the third hill, which side you're coming from. Say you're spawning here and you have control of the third hill, as long as you're pushed up into boxes or you have somebody that goes through pipes and you're on this head glitch, or maybe even somebody laying right here is something that I've seen a lot. As long as you're pushed up into the cuts, you can really max out that time. Just like if you have the warehouse spawn and you have control, so you go through warehouse and you have control of the third hill, if you have people pushed up into these corners, into these head glitches, then now you can control the enemy team pushing into three. So really both sides of three can be beneficial, but you do want to try to hold down this spawn because the fifth hill is one where you can also max out 60 points. Not to go ahead and skip the fourth hill. Fourth hill, again, you do want to be spawning here, not from the other side, just because if you're spawning over here by 2, then you're not going to be in position to max out on 5. So you do want to be spawning over by 5 for the fourth hill. And then last but not least, as we've been talking about, fifth hill is here. You can spawn right behind it. You want to try to have your enemy spawn out from over here. Now, say there's a battle going on in the hill, okay? Say this hill is contested. What will happen, and we'll talk through this because this happens almost every map, is one team will spawn here, okay? We'll say, say Chicago spawning here. If that hill is contested, then the other team, New York, will spawn over here. So a lot of times what people will do is, say New York is spawning over here, over towards woods, what they'll do is they'll get these chokes and they'll try to shoot people as they're coming down these flanks before they can get into hill. Just like if you're talking about Chicago, Chicago would be spawning on the other side and they'll come down here and they'll try to get kills in these cutoffs before the enemy team could get in. So in certain scenarios, this hill can be really contested. It'll just depend. If you have a spawn here and you have control of the hill, then you want to push up into boxes and up into mid and watch the cuts from mid map. But most of the time, this hill gets contested and they spawn on either side of it. So with that, let's go ahead. Let's pull up the footage and let's get into it. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead just because we don't need to see the intro. But at the beginning here, there's going to be a battle over that first spawn. And you can see that Chicago is spawning out. So they didn't get the favorable spawn here. Also, a couple people have asked, how the map setup works in actual matches. It all comes down to a veto system. So certain teams will decide what team or what map they don't want to play against certain other teams. So that's how picking maps work. And I can go a little bit deeper into that if you guys are curious about it. But right now, this is pretty decent time that Chicago's getting on hill. You can see that they're up by just a couple, but they are trying to push through this right side, and this is really hard to do. So New York got this favorable spawn, and they're just holding down this open cargo side. So it looks like whoever flipped, so it was really hard to see right there, but somebody pushed through on the left side, and when everybody went down on the right side, they were able to spawn back on the left side for Chicago. So with the last 2 seconds here, even though New York has about a 16-point lead. This is where you're going to see the lead get pushed out a little bit. Now, this is a really close game, so this comes down, I think it's like a 10-point game. It's a super intense finish, so this is just going to ping-pong back and forth, just like you saw Formal die right there, and normally, if they have that held down, they'll spawn back behind it, but they don't have this held down, so now they're spawning out. Look at the blue arrows coming up on the minimap. Everybody is spawning out, so right now there's going to be a push to try to get back into the hard point. Now, with that said, you only want to battle this for the next, I don't know, maybe 7-8 seconds. When Chicago comes off of spawn here, those that died in the last hard point are going to want to rotate over to that third hill. Envoy was over there, and he just went down. So, as of right now, New York has control of the hill, and it looks like Formal's going to try to push out this warehouse so that they can maintain this warehouse spawn. Again, remember, we said in the third hill, it doesn't really matter too much where you're coming from, but you do want to hold down that back warehouse area. So that's what Formal's trying to do right now, is just hold down back warehouse. I don't like the fact that there's somebody behind him somewhere. He saw someone go mid-map, and that person has pushed out behind him. So you're going to see when the blue arrows come off spawn, they are no longer spawning back here in the back. So they spawned over towards Cole, over towards mid-map, and that was kind of a mistake with Formal there. He started to push up towards the hill a little bit too much, and that allowed somebody to get behind him. Looks like Temp is the one that pushed behind them. And then now you're going to see when Formal comes off spawn, they are absolutely spawning out, and this could be really bad. So if you have a serious slaying advantage against whatever team you're playing, and you're spawning out on this third hard point, then it's going to be hard not only to get the time for the third hard point, but you're not going to be able to flip spawns for the fourth and for the ultimately that fifth hard point. So now, luckily, these teams are pretty talented in terms of their ability and their overall ability to slay out. But for right now, that was a mistake that, of course, you don't want to put it all on one player, but Formal definitely should have not been worried about the hill and just been pushed back, making sure nobody was pushing back behind them. Kind of some shaky shots there, too. You don't really see that. Normally, that person that was in woods right there, if there's a battle with Formal, that person usually dies. But with this, as we're in the fourth hill, you're going to start to see a couple flanks here as Chicago tries to flip these spawns. Now, it looks like there is somebody pushed up mid-map. It looks like that was Scump. So if you look at the skull and crossbones that was right in front of Formal there, looks like Scump died in green as he was trying to push through. So at this point in time, there's 23 seconds left, and everybody's flooding back towards hill, and I don't know how much I like that. At least one or two times, somebody should have tried to push out that Cole area, that right flank, just to try to get behind them or spawn a little bit closer to 5. So with 10 seconds left, it does look like Chicago's going to hold like a 12 or 13-point lead going into this fifth hard point, but if you look at the map positioning, nobody for Chicago is set up where they need to be, and I expect this is where a big chunk of the points for New York is going to come. Now, I haven't seen this. I just know that it ends up being really close, so I usually don't like to watch these before I diagnose them just because I don't want to kind of rehearse what I'm going to say. I just kind of like it to flow naturally, so I haven't seen what happened here, but if I had to guess, although this is a nice push here in the back, so Formal's here. I can't really tell who's to his left. I couldn't pick it up, but it looks like if they're spawning in the back here, so this is where teams are going to get contested. So I would expect when Formal comes off spawn right now, so he spawned over at Cole, which means since that was contested territory, New York was spawning over at Woods. So now in the battle for this back positioning over here, Formal just lost to Temp, but essentially what happened is Formal spawned on the right, Temp spawned on the left, and then they both went back kind of at the same time to set up spawns for that second hard point. So with this, I will say Chicago's only down by 10. So going into that fifth hill, I would have expected that to be a much larger advantage for New York, and they didn't really take advantage of it. Now, with that said, Chicago's spawning out again. So this is usually about the point in the time in the videos where I let you guys listen in to hear what they're talking about. I will, of course, pop back in and out with everything that I see that's really important, all like the clutch plays and kills and rotations and stuff like that. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn this up just so that we can hear what they're talking about, because as this goes on, it's getting a little bit more intense. Let's hear what they're talking about here.
Nice top, got me. I got naded.
Giving up right, guys. I'm giving up right.
Spawns did flip, by the way, so when Formal comes up here. Oh, he didn't. So just before there, a couple people for Chicago were spawning back on the other side, and now they spawned out again. So there must have been somebody still in a flank back there for New York. Let's see what happens as we move on.
I'm about to go top. I'm about to go top.
Top you right.
Nice. 3
Dead. Deep right. One shot. Yep, right train, guys.
This is a nice job out of New York being pushed up into showers, into bathroom, down into Formal's left. They were just able to get a couple really nice kills there on Envoy, Gunless, and Scum.
Tracks weak. Nice. Back right still. Lamar's dead. Back right dead. We're top cat. Donnie's top cat. Weak. Top cat.
Yeah.
Nice.
5 just went down in the kill feed. So right now, since Chicago's spawning on this right side, the enemy team, so New York's going to be spawning on the left side. So this is just like that second hard point. If the hill's contested, one team's coming from the right, the other team's going to spawn on the left.
They rotated. Go.
Go Cole. In the back.
Bathroom weak, Trey.
There's left scrap.
Just leave the guy hold.
He's on close, one's gonna pinch, water.
He's
Trey, weak water.
I will say with this one, New York might have given up on this a little bit early. So they worked really hard to get spawns for this second hard point. And then with about 24 seconds left, they just gave it up. So they allowed that last 23 or 24 seconds to go to Chicago. And now the game was almost back to being tied. I would have liked to see maybe 3 rotate, but you don't have to have all 5 rotate. A couple could still go in there and try to fight for that time.
On these boxes. I have 4.
Now that we're in the third hard point, Formal, Arcides, the ARs, you'd want to see them be pushing around back so that they have control of spawns for not this third hard point, but for the 4th and then the 5th one.
I needed it. Go pipe Donnie. We're back right.
I got him behind you.
More boxes hit. Ramp.
They're focusing right now.
Push through that shit.
I tried.
They're here.
Now, one thing to point out is that if I'm looking at the mini map in the top left-hand corner, and it does look like Chicago is pushed out into this back spawn. So even though they're about to be down by about 20-ish, 22, 23, somewhere in there, it does, man, these spawns. So Chicago was, if you looked at Formal's mini maps, Chicago was pushed back into that spawn. Now they got flipped again. That's a couple times where we've seen that happen, where it looks like one team has control of the spawn and they've given it up. Normally you don't see stuff like this happen. So this is a game where I believe Chicago wins, and they haven't really had control of spawns basically any time. Think about the last 5th hill, the last 2nd hill. They didn't start any of those hills with spawns. So I don't know if it's a slaying advantage. We'll be able to see when we look at the scoreboard at the end. But this New York's controlling spawns here. They should definitely win this if they always have spawns. Now, as we rotate to the 5th hill, it does look like Chicago's going to have about a 20-point lead. So if they have a 20-point lead going into that 5th hill, New York's really putting all of their eggs in one basket. There was one person that was pushed forward, and that saved them probably about a 6-point swing there. So as we rotate to this back hill, it is now a 10-point game. Chicago's going to have to make something happen in order to win this one.
I'm going back to left. They're spawning Cole.
There's one P3.
They're all over Cole.
He's dead.
They have a trophy.
I can see the cross still.
I got the trophy.
Nice. I have all these guys cut. You guys just fight hill.
Pushing doggy.
So they just got 3 in hill and Formal set up on this cross. Remember we talked about if the hill's contested, one's going to spawn woods, one's going to spawn out towards Cole. So what Formal's doing right now is he was pushing that cut, trying to get anybody that's coming in from that cutoff. This is a really nice job from Chicago, and it's starting to clear up in terms of why they might win this. So there's 21 seconds left. They can win off of this hill except for that contest. So New York had to contest there. They're contesting for like the last 6 seconds or so. So this is going to go back to the first hill. This will be a clutch kill by Formal. Whoever wins this gun battle is going to get the last 8 or 10 seconds. So the last 10 seconds here are going to go to Chicago. It's going to be about 240 to 225. Nice kill on the flank there from Formal. This is going to mid-map, and right now it's just a full-out flood. Nothing matters in terms of spawns or map positioning. There are 9 seconds left. You're just trying to get in. So they threw smoke just to kind of muddy it up a little bit so nobody can really see what's happening, and they're just trying to get in. So this really is going back and forth. There's only 3 seconds left. Formal's in. 1 second left. Somebody's coming from behind him, and it doesn't matter. So with that, it's a 250 to 226 victory for Chicago. I'm a little bit surprised by this because, again, they didn't really have spawns at all, and that's an issue. Moving forward for Chicago, they really have to work on locking down spawns as it goes to that 2nd and that 5th Hardpoint, because against a team like Dallas or Atlanta or even Minnesota, who they've kind of been going back and forth with, that really matters. Arcidy's 31, Gunless 30, Formal with 29. So Envoy was definitely the worst in the lobby, but it didn't hurt him too much. And with that, guys, thank you so much for checking out another video. I really appreciate it. All the new subs, thank you so much for subscribing. If you ever have any questions whatsoever, please let me know down below. That's what I'm here for. I'll answer anything that you're curious about. Also, that Minnesota land, now we're only like a week or so away, so it's coming up very quickly, about a week and a half away, so make sure that you're turned in for that. I am your headquarters for everything that weekend. I'm probably going to upload 15, 20, 25 videos, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't leave without leaving a like, and I will catch you in the next one. We'll see you.